Hello, everybody. My name is Adam Thorne, and welcome to the Australian Aviation Podcast, probably the least professional industry podcast in Australia. Joining me as ever, you was about to say something then. Let me do the introduction.
We're proud to wear that crown, Adam.
We are proud to wear that crown. Joining me as ever, co-host Jake. Say hello.
Hello.
Before, we've got a lot of shout-outs today, actually. In fact, most of this show will probably be shout-outs. Obviously, the first shout-out to a very special visitor to Australia, His Majesty the King. I have no doubt he is listening, probably later in the week because he's got a lot on. But, yeah, welcome to Australia. Apologies at the state it's been in. I've been here 8 years. I tried to go there, lay the groundwork for you, but these locals, they're a law unto themselves. So, I can't do much about that.
He's been given honorary titles as well, hasn't he? In relation to the military, honorary Marshal of the Air Force and honorary this and that for the Navy and the Army.
I mean, say this and that. Imagine if you are a fighter pilot for the RAF, how much more inspired you would feel knowing that ultimately the big dog is in charge.
Well, it's good for Charles that they are honorary positions because he came dangerously close to having a real job.
Shush, not any of that Republican nonsense here. Right, we got a lot of shout-outs to do. Before we go into the actual shout-outs, Jake so the last time we recorded this, he was on the first leg of his holiday, which involved being a dungeon master in Canberra. The second part of his holiday, you went to Melbourne. Before we talk about the disaster and getting home, talk us about, you were at PAX?
PAX, yeah. And I went to PAX in Melbourne over not this weekend gone, but the previous weekend. 3-day event. Pop culture convention, gaming, tabletop. Mainly gaming. Great 3 days. We both loved it. Got a lot of new pins for our collections because pin trading is a big thing down there. In PAX, like Disney pin trading. If you're familiar with you get collectible pins and you can trade them with other people.
It's like football stickers, but uncooler.
Well, they're made of metal.
I see. Yeah, it's like Pogs.
A little bit, but like enamel pins,
I see. Yeah.
So and you can trade them with other people. So I got some nice new pins for my collection.
Nice.
Completed a couple of sets, which was nice, and went to some amusing panels, like one where they played D&D, but every role they actually had
Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, that's Dungeons and Dragons, but every role they had to do for real. So one of the players was like, "Oh, I tackled the guard," and ran up and tackled the dungeon master.
Well, I just literally tackled him.
Yeah, well, grabbed onto him basically, and they had to make a Constitution saving throw by drinking an entire shot of lemon juice without flinching and things like that. Okay. So great 3 days. So
you had a fantastic time, all was well
until Monday, when we were on our way home. And it was a, you may remember, Adam, because you were in Sydney, it was a pretty stormy day.
It was a pretty stormy day.
And so our Virgin flight back to Sydney was cancelled due to the weather, and we were not rebooked on another flight until Wednesday, the 16th.
So you were due to fly back on the Tuesday
on the Monday.
And the next flight they could get you on was the Thursday.
The Wednesday.
The Wednesday.
Yeah.
And this was, so basically it was 48 hours, basically, you were there.
Something like that, yeah.
And obviously you called Virgin and played, but don't you know who I am card.
I
would have been disappointed if you hadn't.
I cannot confirm or deny whether I did that,
He
Adam.
totally did. And he was like, put me onto Jane right now.
Yeah, where's Jane at? But no, it was unfortunate, and we couldn't get any compensation from Virgin because it was due to the weather.
But it's due to the weather and the fact that Sydney Airport is effectively not able to operate in that weather.
Yeah, but it's outside. It was outside the airline's control. Which was the problem.
It's not Virgin's fault, but it does actually bring to mind how absurd it is that Sydney Airport is still. When you get a little bit of bad weather, it's going down to single runway operations. Just generally, when there's bad weather, the whole thing falls apart.
Well, there was lightning apparently at the airport. That's what I heard. So that was not a fun time. We had to get the Skybus back into Melbourne, had to find another hotel for another couple of days. So I'm waiting on the travel insurance.
But
because
you absolutely, of course you got a travel insurance.
I was a very wise and sage man and got travel insurance. So I'm waiting for them to compensate us for the extra expenses we incurred on another 2 days in Melbourne. But once my lovely partner Jenny got over the irritation to some degree, she managed to squeeze something in. She went to the Sea Life Aquarium to see Pesto. Have you heard of Pesto?
Pesto.
Pesto is a penguin. Is like a baby penguin who's like I don't know, bigger than some other penguins.
Pesto penguin.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. He's an actual penguin.
It's an actual penguin. He's massive, apparently. I didn't see him in person because I was dutifully beavering away in the hotel room at Australian Aviation to bring you all the latest aviation news and insights.
This penguin's enormous.
It is.
It doesn't actually look like a penguin. It looks like a dog. It's enormous.
Little bit, yeah.
Furry.
But
really fat.
So she got to see Pesto, thanks to a free entry that we got from the Macca's Monopoly competition. So
you've had a right time. So your insurance has paid for your hotel.
Insurance is hopefully going to pay for the hotel. They're still processing.
They should do.
Yeah.
I mean, you can always play the Don't You Know Who I Am card with them. If it doesn't work once, it will work surely the second time.
A couple more travel insurance if you're listening.
Yeah, you're the only person I know that would have got travel insurance for a short trip to Melbourne. But to be fair, you've been proved completely correct. Always get travel insurance.
Yeah, it was being sold by Virgin through Virgin with the ticket, so I figured I might as well pick it up. It was probably there was probably a couple of reasons that we couldn't get on an earlier flight. There was all these Lebanon repatriation flights going on, and there was also Virgin probably still reaccommodating all the Rex passengers like they did for us on the way down to Melbourne. So it was just an unfortunate situation all around, but a longer trip to Melbourne than we were anticipating, and I was able to get some good shots at the airport and do a bit more work at the airport.
Yeah. So if life deals you lemons, get Pesto.
I suppose so. Yeah. I don't know if lemon is an ingredient in Pesto.
No, but it was just, I think the point is I've just substituted one sort of food type thing for another food type thing.
Sure.
Don't overanalyze it. It was brilliant. And while Jake was trying to get back from Melbourne, myself and Ben, we were at the Safe Skies conference in Canberra, which is a kind of once every other year biannual conference which brings together everybody involved in aviation safety. And we went down there to do some kind of video podcast interviews because obviously lots of top people were in one room. They will be going online on YouTube imminently. Unfortunately, Jordan the Great, that made the round table, he's off ill at the moment. So Jordan, if you are watching this, get back to work, you lazy little sod. Apparently he's genuinely ill. I say apparently he's genuinely ill. We were meant to meet up for a drink on Sunday because he's around the corner from me. And this was a big deal because this is when we become like officially friends. We're outside of work friends, right? Rather than just having to pretend to like each other because we're at work.
Yeah, like we do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this is a big deal. I mean, he pulled out at the last minute. He says, I'm ill. But he's not been in work the last couple of days, so he must actually be ill. So if you are listening, watching, get well soon and get back to work. Anyway, we did all of these interviews. One of the interviews we did, which actually also became the podcast last week, was with Angela Garvey, which I'm sure everybody has listened to, and as well as doing lots of good work in the general aviation community with mental health and support and counselling, she also, perhaps more importantly, gave me some freebies and some stuff to put on our shelving unit. Love freebies. So she actually flew with the Freedom Formation team at the Pacific Air Show. She's given me a cap here. I can't actually put that on with headphones. But she's
not with that attitude.
No, I'll put it. Right. Anyway,
what does that say on the back?
We don't know. It says MMSOBJGY TAST. Something.
Yeah, it's mum-sob-jiggy tast.
Yeah, we don't know what that means. Anyway, we got a lovely cat, and also
Angela, if you're listening, what does mum-sob-jiggy tast?
I've also got here.
The ASMR community is going to love this podcast.
Yeah. We've also got a We've also got a polo shirt. This is the sort of thing you could wear when I was running. Nice. So this is the Freedom Formation polo shirt here. Very nice material. In a size medium. I won't put it on now, but I will try and put this stuff on our shelving unit. Give me a second here. We don't want dead air, so just say some random drivel while I move.
I move.
Yeah.
Let's not have random drivel. I do have a shout out because I was recognised as a presenter of the Australian Aviation podcast, thanks to our performance on YouTube. This was at Sydney Airport. I, like the lummox that I am, left my poor laptop behind in the overhead bin on the flight back from Sydney. By the way, we managed to score Economy X exit row seats for $0, so that was nice. But I had left my laptop in the overhead bin because I had 4,700 other things that I had to pick up. And I was telling the lovely people at the desk at the gate about it, and one of them said, "Oh, well, you should talk about it on the podcast." And so it was wonderful to be recognised.
So this person not only recognised but personally helped you as well.
Yes, yeah. Thank you to Ryan from Virgin Australia, if you're listening to the podcast, and I know you are, who retrieved for me my laptop from the overhead bin. Very much appreciated.
Did you give him an autograph or something?
No,
or
no.
pose for a photo?
I said no autographs. I'm too famous. But I did say that I would. I did say that I would give him a shout out on the podcast. So Ryan from Virgin Australia, if you're listening to this at the gym, thank you very much.
No, that's really good. That's really good. No, very good anecdote and cover that time. We also had, this is going to be quite difficult to explain, we also had a fantastic email from Gary Pritchard, which was in response to us trying to fill up the shelving unit with aviation merchandise. He says, "Hello, Adam and Jake. In relation to your request for memorabilia, I attach a photo of man's first flight taken at Kitty Hawk, December 1903, which I purchased at the Wright Museum at Kitty Hawk.
You'd hate to purchase it at the wrong museum.
I also attached a photo of the Wright Flyer made for me by my granddaughter. One or both might look excellent in your studio. I am a founder and member of the Aviation Law Association of Australia and New Zealand." Right, I'm not going to sure how this is going to work with showing this on a video, but this is it here. So this is, if you can see, this is it. This is all good. So basically, what you won't see, can you move it closer to the...
Yeah, there we go. So if you're now it's I should not talk while I'm holding this up.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, what Gary's daughter has done is kind of recreated this iconic photo, but there's Lego pieces that actually are the people. So I can see it now, right? So when you first look at it, this looks like the actual photo, the legendary photo. But his daughter's. This is really talented. I don't know how old she was when she made this. I hope she's got a career in art because these are little Lego people, and it looks like the aircraft's made of like sticks and matchsticks or something. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. We were very, very impressed. So this is going to take pride of place on our shelving unit. So we're going to get rid of some more rubbish.
It's those poor plants, Adam.
They're not real, mate. They're not real. Right, so it's going to go here. There we go. So it's more.
You can probably put the plants on either side.
They're not real, mate, and they're also cheap. They're just rubbish. I don't know what we've got them in the. I know you love the fake plants. They're rubbish. So anyway, now we've got two Embraer aircraft. We've got a polo shirt. We've got an aircraft seatbelt. We've got Gary's daughter's fantastic photo. We've got a Freedom Flyer cat, and of course we've got Soot. I would like to have Soot on my lap for this podcast, like the last one, but it's probably going too far to have a stuffed dog on my lap for two episodes. But that's progress. That's pretty good. We got any other shout outs at all?
Sorry, it was Gary's granddaughter.
Oh, sorry, Gary. Gary's granddaughter. If you are Gary's granddaughter, you want to get in touch, tell us a little bit more about this. We'd love to talk a little bit about it because that was absolutely fantastic. I actually robbed the frame it was the only frame we've got in the office. I think I threw something out and put that in there. I don't care, but it's good. It looks good there.
Well, we will need another frame for something we've got coming up.
We'll get to that later. You've got to build suspense. We're going to build suspense.
Well, I am building suspense.
You are building suspense, right? Nonsense over. Let's talk about the week's news. Jake, what are we starting with?
Well, why don't we start with the reason that I've got a piece of paper here.
Here we go.
So we've had the BITRE data come out today, the on-time performance data, hot off the presses. And it looks like Qantas and QantasLink combined have come out on top. They have all QF designated services, so that's Qantas and QantasLink together, departed on time 77.1% of the time, arrived 76% of the time. Now for VA flights, that compares 73.1% on-time departures and 73% on-time arrivals. So actually, on-time departures and on-time arrivals, the plane took off on time 73% of the time and presumably arrived, it was the same flights. I don't know. But anyway, now this is despite Virgin having half of the cancellations, and this was September. So when October comes around, Virgin. But this was in September. They had half of the cancellations of Qantas at 1.4%, and this is compared to 2.8%. By the way, individually, QantasLink was better than mainline Qantas on on-time departures and arrivals, but worse for cancellations. Jetstar also, surprisingly, lowest cancellation rate of the major airlines.
What was it?
So it was just 1.3% of domestic flights cancelled. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. And what was their delays, their on-time performance?
So on-time performance for Jetstar, 74% on-time departures and 72.3% on-time arrivals.
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Now, all of these... most of these measures are still below the long-term averages. So long-term averages, so across all the participating airlines, so that's Hinterland, Jetstar, Qantas, QantasLink, Rex, Skytrans, Virgin Australia, and Vara. That's Virgin Australia Regional. We had 76.1% take off on time, 75.5% arrive on time, 2% cancellations. Now, most of these measures were below the long-term averages still, 81.9% on-time departures, 80.8% on-time arrivals. But cancellations were below the long-term averages,
and that must be one of the first times that's happened post-COVID.
Yeah, it's not common. I can't tell you if it's the first time, but long-term averages, the cancellation rate is 2.2%. So just beat it with 2% cancellations for the month. Well done, aviation industry.
Now, what generally happens here is that everybody comes out and claims victory. That hasn't happened as yet, but these are hot off the press. That still could happen. In order to sift through the various claims, we have brilliantly created weights. We have created, and have been done for a while now, the Jake Nelson Airline of the Month. This is, again, cuts through the faff and tells you what's going on. Highly prestigious industry. I've constantly got calls from the airline CEOs. You know, they're obviously lobbying to get the award. Tell us today, right now, who is the Jake Nelson Airline of the Month? Go.
Well, we're not calling it that anymore, Adam. We've got a new name for this award. We finally worked out a snappy name for it.
Snappy-ish.
Adam, tell me, do you like Huey Lewis in the News?
As we said earlier, I haven't got a clue what you're talking about.
Their early work was a little too new wave for my taste, but when Sports came out in '83, I think they really came into their own, commercially and artistically. The whole album has a clear, crisp sound and a new sheen of consummate professionalism that really gives the songs a big boost. He's been compared to Elvis Costello, but I think Huey has a far more bitter, cynical sense of humor.
Right, go on, explain.
So what is this measuring? Reliability.
Yep.
It's measuring how well
being on time,
how well the airline can get you back in time. And who performed the song Back in Time? Huey Lewis in the News. So,
but as I explained to you earlier, you know, in Back to the Future, they're going back in time.
Right. But
you don't. But so in my eyes, we can only give this if you actually say like your flight departs at 3, and then you arrive at destination at like midday. So what I'm saying is
you can do that with time zones, Adam.
Yeah, technically. But you're effectively riffing off saying that they will get you there on time.
They will get you back in time. And so we have created the Huey Award for the most reliable airline. And you see,
he mocked that up just before, and he actually worked out a printout in colour. I don't think anyone's printed in colour before.
In the history of the world. But I'm that good.
Yeah.
So we have the Australian Aviation Huey Award for most reliable airline. Promise me I'll be back in time. And this week, joint effort, QantasLink. You are the.
Well, that's 2 different airlines, basically.
Well, QantasLink handles most a hefty chunk of Qantas's domestic services, and they are all QF coded.
Yeah.
So Qantas, between mainline Qantas and QantasLink, the inaugural winner, as named, the inaugural Huey Award winner for most reliable airline for the month of September.
So what we should do then is obviously we need to find a frame.
Yeah.
So we'll find a frame. We will put that on somewhere on. We'll throw some stuff out. Put that on their shelving unit,
Yeah.
and we will put like a kind of a plate. Or we'll just draw on who Qantas and Qantas Link, and then we'll put that on there. And then every time we change it, we will swap in a new one.
Yep.
So then that can
We've
always
got it
go
all
there.
figured out.
Yeah, we've got it all figured out. No, that's good.
And that's and you know, hopefully this will unleash the power of love for the winning airlines. It's a beautiful thing.
I can imagine the kind of panicked meetings in boardrooms now. They're like, well, we've got to win this. So it's the Huey. Essentially, it's like the Oscars for the Academy Awards. This is just the Huey.
The Hueys. Yeah. So there you go. The first Huey Award winner, Qantas Group.
Congratulations. What are we talking about next, Jake?
That's a very good question, Adam. Well, why don't we talk about the latest developments in the Qatar Airways bid for Virgin and the wet leasing arrangement that would see Virgin operate, Qatar operate Virgin flights to Doha.
So this is basically the background here is that Qatar have bought or are in the process of buying 25% of Virgin Australia. As part of that deal, Qatar will be flying wide-body aircraft to Doha, which then will obviously allow ongoing flights. I say the controversy, but the twist here is that Qatar, separate to Virgin, tried to put these flights on a year or so ago, and the Australian government blocked them. What's basically happened is now, because these flights are Virgin Australia flights that kind of happen to be using Qatar crew and Qatar aircraft, this means they effectively come under a different allocation, which will make it a lot more difficult for the government to block these flights. This, in a sense, makes a mockery of the rules, but it almost makes the rules look quite stupid. That the government turned around a year and a half ago or whatever and went, oh, there's no room here, but it transpires there is a room here if you just find a different angle. So this has obviously got to be cleared by the various authorities. So from what we gather, you're basically saying that Virgin of Qatar have basically said, hurry up and let us know if we can do this.
Yeah, so Virgin has asked the ACCC to give interim approval or interim authorization for these wet lease flights by next month, because they're looking to get underway and sell tickets for a June 2025 launch. They want to get in on the peak northern summer period, as well as these major events like next year's British and Irish Lions rugby tour, which I believe,
want to get in that,
which
definitely.
I believe Qatar is sponsoring. So they've basically said, we don't want to have to delay these new services. Yeah. If you don't give us this interim authorization, then we would have to push back the launch of the wet leased services until December, which would, cause us to miss out commercially on all of that, revenue we could have got from launching in June, and also have customers miss out on the possibility of getting on these extra flights.
Which is fair enough. Now, this is all going to be a very, not murky, but complicated web, because the last time the people that blocked the flights was effectively Transport Minister Catherine King. She made a government decision and basically said, we can't give you any more capacity. If you want to fly more people, put on bigger aircraft. But this time, there's two bodies that effectively rule on this. One will be the ACCC, which is obviously not Catherine King. It's hard to see how the ACCC could possibly block this, given that it's put more competition into Australia. I can't see any argument or any situation where the ACCC would say no, because clearly, more competition, more flights is a good thing. So the ACCC can give it interim authorization, which is basically the go-ahead until they go and work it out properly. There's also another body as well that's got to sign these off.
Yeah, the Foreign Investment Review Board has to sign off the deal.
Yeah. But does that come under Catherine King?
No, Foreign Investment Review Board is Treasury. So that's for the whole 25% stake in Virgin thing.
I see.
So Treasury is the Foreign Investment Review Board, and it's those who have to sell off the actual buying of 25% of Virgin.
I mean, the problem here is that now, essentially for Catherine King, if this is ultimately all allowed to go through, she's going to look very stupid, because basically she said, no, you can't do this, and now, yes, we can. I know the specifics might be slightly different. It's very hard to see how this is going to be blocked. I don't see a situation, because if the ACCC were to stop this or not give this authorization, there would be absolute public outroar, because it's like, you can't do this again. Also, whatever your views on Qatar, having another domestic link into Doha, which is obviously a hub that can go kind of anywhere, is surely a good thing. And I also see, totally from Virgin Australia's point of view, the sooner they can put these flights on, the better. It seems absurd to me that you would delay this, particularly seeing as you've obviously got the British and Lions tour, which we don't want to miss. But I think Virgin Australia are well within their rights to say, get a move on. Because clearly, like the ACCC, they know everything. They don't need time to make a decision. They're either going to allow this to happen or they're not.
Yeah, well, as well as this, we had this was criticised, this wet lease arrangement, by the Qantas Pilots Union, the Australian and International Pilots Association. Their president, Tony Lucas, called it a workaround of bilateral agreements. And what he's basically arguing is that because these are going to be wet leased with Qatari crews flying these planes. He said, quote, if you're thinking about what it means for Australian jobs, it's 4 routes, so probably 8 aircraft, which means about 280 pilots and 1,300 flight attendants that are not being employed in Australia. They're being employed in Qatar, so they won't pay Australian tax and they won't contribute significantly to the Australian economy. He said the entire thing just feels like a bit of a sham arrangement. The government introduced closing loophole legislation to try and protect the rights of Australian workers, and this just seems to be a loophole to get around those protections in favour of a foreign entity.
But we know, so when we talk about a wet lease in a dry lease, which are ridiculous terms, but so a wet lease is basically when you book it through Virgin Australia and it is a Qatar aircraft and Qatar crew. A dry lease is when you take somebody else's aircraft but you use your own crew. Yeah, effectively. So what often happens with these kind of deals is they start off as wet lease and then they move on to being dry lease, because obviously it's like you just need to get going.
That's what Bonza tried with the Flare aircraft.
Yeah, it's what Bonza tried. So at the moment, this is a wet lease deal. We don't know if it will turn into a dry lease, but that's obviously potentially another sort of tactic that Virgin could use further down the line. They could say, look, we're going to start this off in the wet lease because we want to get these flights happen, but over time we can sort of train people up. Yep. I can totally see that point there that the Qantas Pilots Union has made. I can see that.
They did, last year criticise this Qantas Finnair deal.
Yep.
That saw the Finnair operate Qantas services to Singapore and Bangkok. Mm-hmm. But Tony Lucas did, I think, point out that this was just a 2-year wet lease deal, and there's sort of no end date yet on the Virgin Qatar wet lease.
I would say, and I'm not sure if this was actually Tony Lucas, but I know that the Qantas Pilots Union, I think a year or so ago, criticised Qantas for what they called a failure of fleet planning by not having more international aircraft. Now, to an extent, Qantas have tried to address this because they're getting another 12 787s and they're getting another 12 A350s, the bog standard ones, not including the A350-1000s. See, I know what I'm talking about, that are going to do Project Sunrise. So there are more international aircraft on the way. But the issue is right now, getting hold of aircraft is difficult. Obviously, we've had all the problems with Boeing. They've got machinists going on strike. They are cutting their budgets. They are cutting staff. They can't at the moment. They're just struggling to make any aircraft. Even Airbus are obviously affected by supply chain shortage. So Virgin's argument would be, yes, in an ideal world, we would have, Australian aircraft, Australian crew flying these things. But right now, we cannot get hold of aircraft. It's hard to get hold of aircraft. Qatar have loads of them, and they want to give it to us. So that would be the argument.
And it's also, these are wide-body aircraft, which Virgin has not flown since before it went into administration. This is Virgin dipping its toe back into the water to say, is this, again, a viable market for us?
And also what we did see, and I think we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago, on these kind of repatriation flights from Lebanon, you saw Qatar Airways and Virgin Australia get involved to help. So obviously the government did a shout out and Qantas flew directly from Cyprus to Perth, I think, and then flew people onwards. But Virgin Australia were able to kind of get in on this, in that Qatar were flying from Cyprus, I think, to Doha, and then Doha on to Sydney, and then Virgin Australia itself was able to help with the kind of the final stage of this route. So the argument would be from Virgin's point of view, it's in the national interest to have access to wide-body aircraft, particularly if we have another pandemic, etc. Having your own stuff is very important. So there is a lot to consider here, a lot of different views. My instinct is this will go through. Perhaps it's going to make Catherine King look a little bit silly, or it's going to be an egg on her face, but it would seem very difficult to stop this. I also would imagine that in the event that does happen, Virgin and Qatar, I bet they've got some pretty good lawyers. You know, there's that scene in The Simpsons where Mr. Burns is like talking to his like team of like 10 or 11. I'm pretty sure you could probably quote me this. You would have. Oh, come on, show me up.
I think there's quite a few scenes of Mr. Burns with his lawyers.
Yeah, no, there's one where he's like, I hate you, the most appalling people, but they always get the job done. You know what I'm talking about. I would imagine Qatar have like 10 or 11 absolute Rottweilers of lawyers that would like jump on this and shove this through.
The main Simpsons lawyer that I know is Lionel Hutz.
I love Lionel Hutz. He's my favourite person in the world.
Your Honour, I move for a bad court thingy.
There's this legendary scene where he's with Bart, and Bart says, when I grow up, I want to be a lawyer just like you. And he said, good for you, son. What America needs is more lawyers. Could you imagine a world without lawyers? Yeah. And they're all dancing around the rainbow and he goes, boom. Love Lionel Hutz.
You care to join me in a belt of scotch? It's 9:30 in the morning. Yeah, but I haven't slept in days.
Oh, yes. When Bart's on trial, he turns around and goes, even if you lose, I'll be famous.
Well, you didn't win. Here's your pizza. But we did win. That's okay. The box is empty.
That's it. We shouldn't talk about lawyers. Anyway, the point is that even if they were to be rejected, there is going to be a lot more to run on this. Okay, welcome back. So we went on some crazy tangents in the first part of this show. Jake, what we need to talk about something serious. What are we going to talk about?
Yeah, speaking of having difficulty obtaining planes.
Nice link, go on.
Yeah, thank you. No, Rex. Link is a different airline entirely. Yeah. We're talking about Rex. We spoke last week to Alan Milne, who is the CEO of Skytrans, sort of a rival regional airline to Rex, operating up in Queensland. You may recall earlier this year they were bought out by Aviation Solutions Group. Their first A319 should be arriving in the country soon for wet leasing. Anyway, CEO of Skytrans, Alan Milne, basically said that he thinks that Rex's aging fleet is kind of an anchor on the company. It's sort of dragging down... or it will make it difficult or more difficult for Rex's administrators, EY Australia, to find a buyer. These Saab 340s, we've talked about this a fair bit. They're around 30 years old on average. And so... I don't think Saab makes them anymore. It's hard to get parts. Rex might be having to cannibalize, grounded planes to find parts for the planes that are still in the air. They're sort of old rattle traps. And anyone who bought Rex would have to refresh the fleet. But
this is the issue. So one of the issues we had with Bonza, and the reason no buyers came in, was because they were an airline without aircraft, because their aircraft were leased and they lost them. So what do you buy?
The only things that they had going for them was their routes, their AOC,
their air operator certificate, basically their license to do it. But in a sense, Rex sort of has a similar problem in that they do have a fleet of aircraft. Some of them are grounded. They're all very, very old. Alan Joyce once, in slightly defamatory, mocked Rex and said the propellers were literally falling off the aircraft. They're not literally falling off, by the way, Alan, if you are listening. But he was making the point that they are very, very old. Now, there's an element that you interview the CEO of Skytrans, right? He would say that. Because... it looks like, we don't know for sure, but it looks like the administrator is struggling to find a buyer. Certainly, it's been, 3-4 months now?
Yeah, it's been a few months.
It's been a few months. No buyers appear to have emerged, or certainly no deal has been done. It does seem obvious that this old fleet is one of the roadblocks to this. Now, the two options that seem to be on the table is that, firstly, these routes are necessary. For these regional towns, they need to have them. They need them for tourism purposes, and they also need it so that business people from those towns can fly into the city to do deals and fly back.
Someone can go to the hospital in the city or visit friends and family.
Yeah, so these flights cannot stop. They are absolutely necessary for Australia to function, particularly as well as we've COVID. A lot of people moved out of the cities and moved to the regions.
Yeah.
So the two options, it seems to me, if they can't find a buyer, are one, the government needs to come in and give them some money or take over control. The other option would be the other kind of smaller airlines step in to take those routes. Which is essentially the idea that they're floating, that don't necessarily think that if Rex completely go under, that's it. There are people willing to come in and do this.
Yeah, I mean, you've got small carriers all across the country that, you know, kind of have their own respective patches. I mean, you've got Skytrans up in Queensland. You've got Hinterland Aviation up in far north Queensland. You know, Sharp Airlines down in Victoria. You know, Link Airways and Fly Pelican in New South Wales. Nexus over in WA. Airlink as well, I think, is based out of Essendon. You've got all these, you know, smaller regional carriers that could conceivably step up and take over some of Rex's capacity.
The issue is, I suppose, if you're, say, Skytrans or one of their rivals, is that why would you go and buy Rex and buy all of those old aircraft and buy all of the financial obligations when you can kind of wait for it to go under and then just move into those routes yourself? Obviously, that therefore puts everybody in a slightly tricky situation. So presumably the administrator, the government are going to have to decide at some point what is the best course of action. The other option, the other thing here is that obviously those other smaller rivals will obviously rush to go into the most lucrative routes. They may not want to necessarily go into the routes which aren't as lucrative but are necessary.
Yeah.
So the whole thing's a bit of a mess.
Well, Sharp Airlines down in Victoria has already said it could, you know, put on more flights to King Island. Skytrans has before stepped up to fill a gap that Rex left behind. So this was Cairns to Bamaga, I think, last year. And Alan Milne said, you know, Rex pulled out of it. We jumped in as quick as we could just to make sure that Bamaga still had an air service. He said, you know, quote, "The point we're trying to make is that there is a lot of capability to provide capacity if needed." He said, "If there's opportunity there, I'm absolutely 100% confident that will be filled. How quickly we can all do that, that's going to come down to how quickly we can introduce new aircraft." So purchasing or leasing, you know, there'd be a financial burden there, but these airlines could conceivably step in where if Rex goes to the great airport in the sky.
The great airport. I also
most airports are on the ground, but you know, the great airport in the sky would be difficult to land at, you'd think.
Yes, no, right. Anyway, but I also wouldn't necessarily write off somehow Rex continuing in some form, because you've got to understand that you had Lim King Hai, he for the majority of the life was the chairman, and then you had John Sharp, who was the deputy chairman, though in reality John Sharp was running the show. He was the front man. In the last couple of months, he was, because of all of the faff behind the scenes, he becomes chairman. He was doing that job for 15, 20 years, a hell of a long time. He's been on the show a couple of times. I would suggest, without being funny, John Sharp probably didn't need the money. I reckon he made quite a lot of money in his career, you know, senior government positions, his finger in many pies. I got the impression he just loved it. He loved Rex. He loved being involved in that aviation community. They also have a lot of people at Rex that do know what they're doing, that love that airline, that know what makes it tick. You would like to think there, if Rex were to survive, there could be a role for those people and the unique knowledge they have. Obviously, they're in a bit of a mess of a situation. But whatever happens, this needs to be resolved shortly, because at the moment, the government is effectively underwriting the flights if they are to not happen. They're saying if you book the flights and somehow Rex goes bust, we will reimburse you. But this kind of holding pattern that they're in cannot carry on forever. So at some point, someone's got to make a decision. Well, this looks like just being kicked down the road. The can's being kicked down the road. Rant over. Right, what are we talking about next, Jake?
Well, Adam, we spoke a bit before about Virgin, and apparently they've had a bit of a jump in their earnings for during the last full financial year.
Yeah.
You did this story.
Oh, God, I'm trying to bring it up now, aren't I? Oh, God, can you just say something funny and I'll find it? Just
something funny and I'll find it.
We can't have dead air. So basically, it's fine for the video, but for the people doing old school... I'm just rambling now.
Just
so
listening to audio on Spotify like cavemen.
Here we go. This will be beautifully written. Why is it loading? Right. So effectively, because Virgin Australia is not on the ASX right now, it is a private company. It doesn't necessarily have to publicly publish its accounts. What they did say, I think, in the first kind of release they sent out was that the earnings had jumped by a fifth to $519 million in the last full financial year. Not the kind of money that Qantas would make, but still looks very impressive. I think what we understood from subsequent reports is they also did make a pretty hefty profit too that was more impressive than their first full year post-administration. What it does seem to point to, though, is, and we said this before, what a good job Jane Hulliker has done. Now, she announced that she was resigning, I think it was back in February, and there's different versions of event as to whether she was pushed or whether she truly left her own accord. We don't know. But it does seem quite extraordinary that whatever it is, 8 or 9 months, she is still there. I think I said before, my snout's on the ground, bedded deep within Virgin Australia, tell me that she is working as hard as ever. She does seem to have done a very, very good job here, because this airline was losing billions of dollars. I think when they went into administration, it was like 8 or 9 billion, a hell of a lot of money. She's taken the airline out of administration. She's given them an entire new strategy. They are making money. They have got a lot of orders for 737 Maxes on the way. Obviously, that's a bit of an issue, but that's not their fault. They seem to have rebuilt the thing. They're making money. I mean, if I were the Bain Capital, the effectively what will be owners of 75%, if I were Qatar Airways, I'd be looking at this and going, maybe we should get her to change her mind. I know when Alex Ferguson was going to leave Man United at one point, he changed his mind. Very different. One's a football team, one's an airline. But I would be looking at this and saying,
Are you under a sky bus at Melbourne Airport?
nice, right. Okay, welcome back. So we're on the final part of the show. Jake, what are we going to talk about next? Not a story I've written. That's not fair. You panicked me then.
Got to keep you on your toes, Adam.
Yeah.
Possibly good to touch on, since we were speaking about Virgin, there's these changes to Velocity Frequent Flyer.
Go on.
Because I am a Velocity Frequent Flyer member.
That's how you got your flights to Melbourne, wasn't it?
No.
Or Canberra.
Was I bought the flight back from Melbourne with actual real people money.
Real people money, dingo dollars.
And I got the flight down because I'd originally bought it with Rex, and they reaccommodated.
Oh yeah.
But these changes to Velocity Frequent Flyer are sort of a mixed bag for customers, because on the one hand, it's going to cost you fewer points to get a domestic flight. But on the other hand, you're also going to have to be, when you take a Virgin flight, you're going to be earning fewer points from it. So it's sort of a bit of an odd mix. Now they've also added a couple of new tiers to Velocity Frequent Flyer. So, for example, you've got this forever sort of gold status, whereby if you this is being added from October next year. So if you get a certain number of status credits. If you have 12,000 status credits since 2013, including at least 9,000 from Virgin flights, you'll get gold status for life. This is, sort of equivalent to Qantas's lifetime gold status. There's also a tier above Platinum, Platinum Plus, which requires you to get 2,000 status credits in a year, which is a lot. At least 1,500 of which have to come from Virgin Australia flights. One of the things that they're doing is they're actually taking out this eligible sectors thing. So you have to fly, currently you have to fly a certain number of eligible sectors to upgrade or maintain your velocity status. But now it's just you have to have a certain number of status credits, and those status credits have to a percentage of those status credits have to be from flying with Virgin Australia. You can't get it from like partner airlines or Flybys or wherever else.
These are all very complicated. What is their justification for doing this? Is it to simplify it, or what is their kind of reasoning?
So Nick Rawlack, who's the CEO, said that the changes, quote, represent our focus and investment in areas that matter most to our members, like great value domestic redemptions and being better recognised for loyalty. So he said they want to have a sustainable, competitive and valuable proposition for members. So basically, it's going to cost you less in points to get a domestic flight, but earning points is going to be a little harder on Virgin flights, and also spending points internationally is going to go up.
But you get most of your points because you shop at Woolworths, right?
Coles.
Yeah, but so this is good for you. It's
great for me.
It's great for you.
I'm not getting most of my points from flying with Virgin. I'm getting most of my points from Flybys.
So effectively, it does sound like there's been some sort of skullduggery where you've used your contacts in Virgin in order to reboot the whole system.
They were very chastened when they couldn't get me a seat out of Melbourne, and so
I didn't think we were commenting as to whether you played the "Don't You Know Who I Am" card, but it appears you inadvertently admitted you did.
I've been exposed.
You said, "Don't you know who I am?" And they went, "There's no sites. There's no seats left." All right, what are we talking about next?
Well, I think we can have a couple of sort of lighter stories to round things off. This isn't something that we covered on Australian Aviation, but we did see. Have you seen at Dunedin Airport over in New Zealand? They've got signs up now in their drop-off zone saying maximum hug time 3 minutes.
Can you imagine? What I like about it now, obviously, we're going to... Obviously, this is meant to be a bit of fun, in a sense, but obviously... Could you imagine in what kind of dystopian world are like the hug police coming up? Imagine like you're there and they're counting up and it gets to 3:01 and the hug police just pulling you apart.
Yeah, coming in with sticks. The sign says max hug time 3 minutes. For fonder farewells, please use the car park. This is in the drop-off.
Please use the car park.
Please use the car park.
Oh, Brett, sorry, you're having so much love there. Can you please take your hugging to the car park, which is not a place which is generally known as being filled full of love.
Yeah, well, it's. I think the aim is to keep the traffic moving through the drop-off zone because we can't have people just hugging for 3 minutes and 2 seconds and taking up all the space. And they were saying that the Dunedin Airport, their chief executive Dan DeBono was saying that they didn't want to have threats to clamp people's wheels or fine them. He said, quote, we're trying to have fun with it. It is an airport and these drop-off locations are common locations for farewells. There's no space left for others. It's about enabling others to have hugs. Yeah. So really it's like maximizing the quantity of hugs by decreasing the length of hugs.
No, I do feel a bit annoyed because obviously this was meant to be a slightly light-hearted thing, which they would hope would generate publicity, job done. Yeah. But obviously there's a lot of people, this kind of awful, I don't want to sound like an old man ranting, this kind of faux outrage. And I think the Daily Mail were like, is this the most disgusting, vile sign in the history of signs? Yeah. Obviously there's a little bit of a joke. I would imagine they're not actually going in with truncheons and sort of, pulling people apart.
Apparently,
it's meant to be a bit of fun. Make you smile.
Yeah, De Bono has also said that apparently some travellers are sometimes using the drop-off zone to engage in last-minute amorous acts.
Amorous acts? Well, I'd like to think they just meant people having a kiss. I couldn't...
He said, airports are hotbeds of emotion. Our staff have seen some interesting things over the years. But basically, no, De Bono said they will not have a special unit of hug police enforcing the rule, but staff may politely ask lingerers to move into the car park. He said, quote, we're not here to tell people how long they should hug for. It's more the message of please move on and provide space for others. So he was saying that to Radio NZ, and that was reported through The Guardian. So a sort of a lighter story there. We've also had... Speaking of Huey Lewis in the news earlier, there was famous, of course, in part for his soundtrack to the Back to the Future films, and RAF Base Edinburgh had a DeLorean as having a DeLorean visit for the upcoming Family Day.
What year did it come from?
Well, that's the thing. We don't know. It just kind of appeared.
Just appears.
Just came out of nowhere.
Does it actually look like the DeLorean?
It's a replica. It's a replica of the actual DeLorean from Back to the Future. So they're going to be having that at this free Family Day on October the 24th.
It does actually look really good.
It does, and it's got the hoverboard in the seat there. But there's what I appreciate is from this defense release. There's all of these wonderful Back to the Future jokes. Are you telling me this sucker is nuclear? Shortly following the drive, Wing Commander Keen was seen installing cables for a weather experiment while discussing something about 1.21 gigawatts and funding for a clock tower. Commanding Officer 11 Squadron Wing Commander Adam Saber, excellent name. Adam Saber, you've got to love that name. He compared the experience of the DeLorean with one of his P-8As. He said, the acceleration is incredible. I hit 88 miles per hour in no time. What's more, the hover conversion takes this vehicle to a whole new level. Who needs a road or runway? The only issue is that the re-entry is a little bumpy. And Disruptive Air Power Lead Group Captain Pete Mitchell was impressed by the cutting-edge capabilities on show. He said, this is heavy. The ability to travel through time using systems such as the time circuits and flux capacitor is a game changer, not to mention the applications for the hoverboard.
So useful addition to the fleet as well for defence purposes. So China, if you are thinking of invading Australia, you want to think again. Because...
Well, see, they may have already thought again because this DeLorean came back in time to stop China from invading.
I see.
Yeah.
So maybe they have, or maybe the person driving the DeLorean will get out and warn of some kind of future attack.
Yeah, perhaps. Chaplain Patrick Garton, who helped facilitate the car's visit. This is owned by Daniel Berganetti, who also owns the company that does the vending machines at various defence establishments. But Chaplain Patrick Garton, who helped facilitate the car's visit, this is from the press release, seemed more interested in the Grey Sports Almanac, searching for when his beloved Adelaide Crows will win their next AFL Premiership. He is still looking. Shots fired. He said, this felt like a moment of density, I mean destiny. So, I mean, there's a lot of geeky references and a lot of Huey Lewis in the news references in this article. But, Adam, as we say, it is hip to be square.
Yes. Right. Okay. Before we finish off, you can do a plug for your musical.
Oh, okay then. Speaking of the year 1985, Hills Musical Theatre Company is taking everyone back to 1985 with Baz Luhrmann's Strictly Ballroom, the musical. It will be opening on November the 8th at Model Farms High School in Sydney for a 6-show run ending on the 16th.
We need to do like a reader-viewer offer. Like if you quote like Nelson 100, you get like $2 off or something. Yeah,
that would require me to actually go and talk to the to the company and work that out because it's not me selling the tickets, it's them.
No. All right. Well, there you go. We gave you a plug. Go on Google, tap it in. It'll come up. Can you actually buy tickets right now?
Yes, you can. They are on sale right now.
Excellent. All right. Well, on that note, we'll finish up the week. Jake, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you very much for watching. And remember, if you do have any tats/great stuff to go on the shelving unit, particularly we're looking for a friend for Scoot. Soots. Oh, God, that's bad.
Scoot is the Singaporean airline.
Yes, I know. Well, you can see how I can make the mistake. A new friend for Soot. We've got lots of pointless generic rubbish that we can throw out. So if you've got any more...
more model planes.
More model planes, plane tickets, pictures... cuddly toys, bits of aircraft, or clothes as well. Do send them in. Media at Australianaviation.
New clothes. Don't send us clothes that you've already worn. That's gross.
No, it's not. Do you not go and buy it like the charity shops? We call them op shops.
Well, at least wash them first.
Yeah, obviously they get dry. Yeah, obviously dry clean them.
And to be clear, we want aviation-related clothes, not just.
No, I'll just take anything, to be honest. Any kind of just anything really would be great. Just any kind of freebie I take. Anyway, we'll be back next week. But for now, from us, goodbye.
Goodbye.